Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the board. I'd like to speak today to Agenda Number 5, Amendment 9. If you'll bear with me, I've always felt there has actually been an overemphasis on the technical requirements, so I'm hoping to create a frame that the TCAC committee can sit in while they do their work. So I'll be talking about an important idea in planning and environmental justice, NIMBYism, or not in my backyard. NIMBYism entered the lexicon of planning and land use a couple of decades ago to describe a phenomenon of protest and anger towards proponents of projects that were seen to have negative impacts on surrounding residents. Specifically, I'd like to speak today about the NIMBY response as it relates to locally unwanted land uses, or LULUs. I'm sure you're all familiar with that acronym. LULUs served to fulfill a purpose for the community as a whole. However, by their nature, they are generally have negative impact on the local community chosen to host them. Some examples of LULUs are toxic waste dumps, landfills, nuclear power plants, and sewage treatment plants. The NIMBY response with regards to locally unwanted land uses is often viewed as ignorant and irrational. The public is considered to be wrong, and thus the response of the planning authority is either to educate the public or to overrule them. That's from Freudenberg in the early 90s. The other view is that the NIMBY response is selfish. Such protest is considered by the planning authority to be less important than wider environmental or technical considerations. However, since the 90s, there's been a growing trend in the areas of urban planning and environmental justice to broaden the definition and understanding of NIMBYism. The trend is towards an understanding that the NIMBY response is actually rational and politically legitimate, and that the local protest may serve to broaden public interest. The following is a list of some of the findings of the NIMBY studies that have been done throughout the 90s, supporting this broader positive view of the NIMBY response. The local community is reacting against a transfer of disadvantages in their own direction, rather than trying to pass the buck to another community. One researcher states that environmental awareness, including awareness of global environmental problems, begins with concerns at the local level. He even calls NIMBY effects a healthy trend for this reason, and that's by Gore in 1992. Citing failure for hazardous waste facilities may be one of the critical turning points on the road to sustainable production. It can represent a shift in focus from where a site is located to what the environmental impacts of such a site have on the larger community, and whether or not the site is actually creating more problems than it's solving. So it kind of acts as a lightning rod. The NIMBY phenomena is also a checking factor against ineffective decision-making. Community opposition develops from well-grounded concerns about the impacts of LULU siting and the fairness or equity of the siting process. In contrast with the negative depiction of NIMBYism in the literature, local protest against LULUs can be viewed in this frame as an essential starting point and an ongoing component of the dynamic environmental movements addressing issues of government spending, sustainability, and community, and finally, democracy. The use of the term NIMBY is no longer appropriate when studying facility siting issues, which are tremendously complicated and multidimensional in their nature, as you are all well aware. As we can see, the growing research literature on the NIMBY phenomena suggests that the public's position on siting issues is actually rational and politically legitimate. Citizens are described as having a strong grasp of the issues and reasonable concern for genuine risks in community health and welfare that is often minimized or discounted by technical and administrative authorities. With this more fulsome perspective, local opposition can serve a broader public interest by identifying important weaknesses and flaws in expert analyses underlying siting proposals. This community response can often force a consideration of a broader range of options, some of which may be more technically suitable and socially acceptable. In conclusion, Okay, I'm just asking that you transfer this to the TCAT committee as a possible frame for them to do their technical work from. Thank you.